Hey everybody, it's Jason Blaha here. Now that my two obligatory informative videos are done for the day, it's time to talk about current events in the online fitness community. And I've had some people ask me, Jason, what do you think of Mike O'Tren's newest video talking about the squat, his secret? So let me put on my +5 out of weaponsmithing, work on skilled in my crafting a little bit. Let's talk about this. I don't know that there was any big secret in it. In fact, I was less than impressed by the video. And I'm not saying Mike's not jacked. I'm not saying Mike's not strong. I'm not saying Mike doesn't have a good work ethic. Because I might give Mike a hard time for being a fake natty. I might give him a hard time for selling garbage, overpriced products, but I will never say that Mike isn't strong and he doesn't train his ass off, right? We all know that he does. I don't think we can disagree with that. It's just the other stuff that's the issue. And this is a case of someone overhyping basic information and acting like it's some magical secret that the low bar squat works hamstrings a little more than high bar squat does. That's ultimately a 20-minute video breaking that down. Let's be honest here, Mike is not a secret. Everyone's read starting strength. I mean, anyone who's read starting strength knows that the low bar squat works a little bit more hip and hamstring than the high bar squat does, right? But here's what I would ask to anyone out there. Who in the world is using the squat as their primary builder for their hamstrings? I mean, look, I'm a big believer in using squat for a big chunk, at least 50% of your lower body training in general. I don't care what the hell you compete in. I don't do bodybuilding and it's not my thing, and I make fun of bodybuilding for the most part. But even for those guys, I would say, yeah, the squat needs to be a dominant exercise. And for any sort of strength athlete or any athlete in general, you need to be barbell squatting. But if you're trying to build your hamstrings and everything more, I'm not saying your squat can't contribute, but that's where hip hinges come in, right? If you want to build hamstrings, we're going to be doing some sort of deadlift, some sort of good morning, right? Hell, maybe even a hip thrust. You know, these are the things that are going to help build your posterior chain and your hamstrings more. The squat is not really the best tool to do that. And I'm not saying it doesn't help. The squat builds your entire lower body. We've got data suggesting that the barbell squat is even better for your calves than calf raises are. Another reason people ask me, what do you do for your calves? Well, genetics, and I squat, deadlift. I don't train my calves. And, that's the thing that people need to realize. A lot of people who are strong squatters build their calves just from the squat. That's just the way it goes, guys. It's an all-around good exercise. Squat's a full-body exercise, and it works the lower body amazingly well. But realistically, is that going to be the main thing anyone's going to do for their hamstrings? Of course not. And what really bothered me was that he went through all this trouble trying to teach these guys how to do a low bar squat, and the one guy's acting like he's never heard of it before. And he was talking about how massive the guy's quads are. His quads weren't that big, like compared to a serious power lifter. Come on. And that was where I was bothered, is where Mike jumps in and tries to say that size and strength are not correlated when we have study after study after study looking at max squats, like how much you can squat versus your muscle size, and there's a direct relationship relative to your height. And he brings up this whole point of, well, you'll see a power lifter. Yeah, because, there's tons of power lifters that do this, who are 181 pounds, and they'll start with a 400-pound squat, and they'll end up later in their career with a 600. Mike, how many guys in the 181, like raw, we're talking totally raw, not wraps, not equipped. How many 181-pound guys out there can squat 600 plus raw? I hope you don't think there's like 20 of them or something. It's a handful. There's a handful in the entire world. And you know what? That's been pretty recent. It wasn't that long ago. Like, Mike, you were a professional in the fitness industry before any 181 ever hit a 600-pound squat. So let's keep that in mind. Let's not pretend we saw that happening all the time 20 years ago. These multiple guys who've hit a 600 squat at 181 has been recent. It's been recent. These are all current lifters. This isn't something people were doing 20 years ago. And what do they all have in common? They're midgets. It's a squidget class, man. 181, like to compete at the world level in the 181 as a power lifter, the reason they're not massive is because they're short. Anyone look at what the top 5 or 6 guys in any federation in the 181 class, you look how tall they are? Any of them taller than about 5'6"? How many of them are 5'3"? Yeah, it's a midget class. Well, not a midget, it's a manlet class. Like the 165 is a midget class. Like guys who are winning 165 or lower at a serious competitive level in powerlifting, we're talking 5'2", 5'3". That's one reason Alpha Destiny, because he's 5'3". That's one reason he's done well as a bench-only competitor. Doesn't train his legs, is lean, and that's why he was able to do well in the 165, because he's really short, less body weight. You don't move the weight as far. That is what the research finds, is that a 1 rep max on a squat can be calculated within 10% based upon a DEXA scan. Yeah, because size equals strength relative to your height. And a shorter guy needs less muscle to lift the same amount of weight. The only reason that the shorter guys don't go into the heavier weight classes is because they can't put enough muscle on their frame, sometimes even with drugs, right? And that's what it comes down to. They're limited in total muscle mass, and so some guy who's carrying more muscle than them is going to beat them, and they'll just be fat in that class. But the data is overwhelming, and the only guys who are hitting these really impressive numbers relative to their body weight, they're really short for the most part. Size equals strength. We've got new studies that have looked at this and reconfirmed it over and over and over. So to stand there and pretend that the weight that you're moving doesn't matter, that's only true when drugs come into the mix. And that is something I discussed, and I've got some videos out breaking some of that down, right? I did some of that recently within the last month, looking at the research on that, and what do we find? That drugs skew the ratio, but when no drugs are there, a simple DEXA scan will tell you approximately what someone's 1 rep max is on the squat by scanning their body. We can see how much lean mass they have. We can see how long their levers are. We can see how tall they are. You can calculate within 10% their max on a squat every single time. Isn't that interesting? As long as they're not using drugs. So Mike will say stuff like this and wants to talk about natural training. Well, that's bullshit, Mike. That's bullshit, and you know that. You know that. You know drugs skew the ratio. And so to stand there and tell these guys that this doesn't matter, and then to have them slow it down, in what world do you want to lift a weight slowly like that to recruit maximum muscle fibers, right? What do we have studies looking at big compound movements? When we look at muscle activation versus cueing, that you get the lowest muscle activation when you don't focus on anything and you just do the lift, right? When you concentrate on a mind-muscle connection, the muscle that you focus on gets more muscle fiber recruitment. That's confirmed in studies, right? So, hey, mind-muscle connection, right? Good stuff. Well, in theory, so on a bench press, like when we do studies, if you focus on your triceps with the same weight, you'll get more tricep activation. If you focus on your chest, you'll get more chest activation. But what happens when you focus on compensatory acceleration? You get more chest and tricep. In fact, it beats the mind-muscle connection for all the muscles than the one that you focused on a mind-muscle connection by a little small margin. So exploding the weight as quickly as you can with good form actually recruits more muscle fibers. So you want to talk about leg development? Well, let's talk about depth on the squat. All right, he's saying, oh, well, weight doesn't matter, and then it says form is what matters. Well, then you need to have the guy squatting. Now, Mike was squatting to parallel. Mike was squatting to parallel from that side shot that he did, which is good because historically when we've seen Mike do some of these box squats and stuff, he's not hitting depth. And he had these guys early on half squatting. Like that one older guy you have there, that dude is doing half squats, looking up at the ceiling with 315. And you're going to talk about form, the guy's half squatting. The deeper you go, we know the more lower quad that gets worked, right? The deeper you go. And then when you want to talk about posterior chain, the high bar squat gives you the best hamstring activation right at parallel. So if these guys aren't squatting to parallel, you're not even getting all that hamstring you're talking about. So here's the overall problem with a lot of what we're seeing. He was letting these guys half squat to some extent. Uh, that's a problem. He acted like knowing the difference between high bar and low bar is some magical secret. Now, believe me, I can appreciate that he wants to discuss high bar versus low bar, but this is basic entry level stuff, right? Knowing the difference between high bar and low bar squat is stuff that you should know early on. This is entry. This is stuff you would know if you just went and read something like Starting Strength. This is basic stuff. You know, understanding how high bar versus low bar affects torso angle. This is basics, guys. This is basics. It's not a magic secret when it's stuff that every lifter in the entire world knows. Like anyone who's serious about their training already, we understand this stuff already. It only seems like bodybuilders are the people, the dumbasses who don't seem to know anything about training most of the time, right? And, you know, granted, now a lot of Mike's audience are dumbass bodybuilders. And they're not usually the most intelligent bunch. There's exceptions, but I mean, as a demographic, they tend to be the stupidest people in the lifting world. They just oftentimes don't know anything about training. That's fine. I'm sure there are pro bodybuilders who don't know the difference between a high bar and a low bar squat. Everyone who trains for any sort of performance does. And I mean, it's fine if you want to get that out there, but it's not a magic secret. And you're not going to see some phenomenal development difference in your lower body because you choose one or the other. It could be a small little bit. It'd be a little bit. It's not going to be night and day. It's not going to be night and day. It's not going to be some magic secret. And here's the whole point with low bar. You can lift more weight with low bar. That's the main reason anyone does low bar. You can lift to, in some cases, up to 5% more weight depending upon your own structure, right? That's the reason people do it. So you can lift more weight. So then you want to talk about doing low bar and then say weight doesn't matter. Well, all the research shows us weight matters. Weight absolutely matters for muscle mass. This isn't even a point of debate or contention anymore in the sports science world. Why are we acting like it is? And the whole point of low bar is that it lets you get a little more muscles involved, lets you lift more weight, right? That's the whole point. So if you want to pretend like you're not trying to lift ultra heavy weight, we don't need to be messing around with low bar squats, right? The whole point of a low bar is to lift ultra heavy weight. You're not trying to set a record, probably just high bar squat. You're not going to see much difference. You're not going to see a difference in your development. You really aren't. And depending upon the person, for some people, their lower back is going to be better off on the high bar squat than the low bar, right? And then when it comes to the other, it comes down to maybe knees. And that was a good point that was made there. There is less stress put on the knees on the low bar squat versus a high bar. That's true. But if you're having knee problems from your squats, even from a high bar squat, there's already something else wrong. You probably have hurt yourself in some other way, or you've been doing half squats, which is what causes the biggest problems, which is some of what we saw happen in there. All right, guys, well, that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it's been informative, and I will talk to you guys next time.